Welcome to the Trailblazer FM podcast. This is your host, Mr. Lee Matthew Jackson. I'm here with the one and only Jon Tsourakis. I got your name right first time, mate. From the company Oyova, which I also had to write down in phonetic just so I could get both of those right. Mate, welcome to the show. How are you this fine day?
Oh, I'm great, Lee Matthew Jackson. Yeah, I appreciate you pronouncing those correctly as well. I didn't realize
That's
this
all
was
right.
going to be
Let's
a little
let's just
linguistic lesson at the beginning.
let's go through this entire episode calling each other by our full names. I'll be a little bit awkward. I'm going to call you John. I give you permission to call me Lee for the
All
rest
right,
of the
you
show.
got it.
So, mate, for the folks who are not aware of who John is, could you give us a little bit of a background of who you are, what you're all about?
Yeah, agency owner. Been on Inc. 5000, I think, 3 times. Been in business since 2008. Got around 30 people right
Hmm.
now, and we work with clients of all shapes, sizes, and colors in digital marketing and
Hmm.
web development, as well as software development.
Nice. Now we have a little time machine that we like to jump in. Let's say it's the TARDIS because I'm clearly got a British accent. If you can go with that, we'll do Doctor Who. Can we go back to before you built that agency back in 2008? How did you even begin to get into the industry? Was it when you were drawing as a child? You were like, yes, I'm going to be creative. What was your what was your
I was
villain
always
starting story, as it were?
yeah,
Origin
yeah.
story. That was the one.
Yeah, the origin story. Everything was so wonderful as a child, and then no. So I worked. My family had a home building business, and I worked alongside my father, my brothers, and it was a decent size, and
Hmm.
there was crews and whatnot. It was it was construction, right? And I wanted to go to college. I did not really want to be in the construction industry because growing up in Florida was exceedingly hot. In any event, he didn't want me going to school, so he made an example of me and he fired me in front of a bunch of people. And then while I was going to school for marketing, this guy that was there had started a marketing company with his father. That company
Mhm.
was rapidly growing, and it was more traditional based stuff. And in that, I got entirely too corporate, and I decided, like, you know what, I like the more digital things, and I'm going to go ahead and leave here. So I quit one day,
Hmm.
and that's it. And there was a how would you put this? It was rather unceremonious. It was an abrupt quitting. It was I don't know if I can like curse on your show and tell like the whole story
Do
there,
what you
but
want, mate. That's fine.
um,
There's no beeps going on here. You're good.
yeah. So anyway, there was this big expansion with this large retailer, which I won't mention. It
Mm.
rhymes with Sears,
Oh, okay.
and they're no longer in business. In any event, so we were doing this, and we had a certain part of the country, and I was working day and night, and I remember asking for a raise, and they're like, "Ah, no, we can't do that." And I'm looking at going to work for other like ad agencies, and they're telling me I would get paid peanuts. I was actually pretty well compensated, and I'm walking down the hall, and we have a new CEO,
Mhm.
and he undermines me in front of my staff. I have 6 team members, and as I'm walking down this hall, he says, "Hey, why was this mailer late?" Some kind of like really small mailer. I believe it was in Ohio or something, which
Mm.
is a state here. And I said, "Hey, I'll tell you after the meeting." He said, "No, you're going to tell me right now." And he hands me a marker and he pokes it in my chest and he tells me to draw it right there on this board. And I look back at my team members and they all look at me and they're like, "Dude, like don't do this. Like we believe in you as a leader. Like this is really emasculating." And I looked back at the guy and I said, "You know what? Go fuck yourself. You draw it." And that's the day that I quit and I started my agency.
Oh, wow. I wonder if a little bit of that as well was driven by being unceremoniously fired as well. I did say we weren't going to do.
Yeah.
This does feel like you're talking to a shrink now, doesn't it? Or whatever,
It,
however they
it
phrase it in
could.
the states.
I
Yeah,
don't know, but I think these are like defining moments
they
where
are.
you have to make a decision and you have to make the best of it. And you have to look at what, like, who you're going to be in those moments, right?
Yeah.
And I have there's miles and miles of tragedy and whatnot, but look at the bright side. Know that there's something good around the corner, and if your head's on mostly straight, you'll figure it out.
That's awesome. What did you feel like that evening?
I was pretty pumped. I was
Yeah.
pretty pumped. Yeah, because there was some friends at that company, and I was just like, all right, I'm done. So I got to figure this out.
Mm.
And that was brutal because that was also in the pit of the recession.
Sure.
So,
I
like,
remember it
there's
well.
nobody spending money,
No.
especially on marketing related
Yeah.
things. That that marketing company was more in the healthcare space, which is a much safer space.
Mm.
So in that, I was just trying to figure out making a plan. The plan I made looked great on paper, completely flopped. It didn't. I pulled some team members together and tried to go and sell, but just pitching and pitching and pitching and pitching and not winning anything because
Oh,
I couldn't
man.
sell anybody in that space either
Mm.
because of a non compete. But yeah, that evening, I want to say that I was pumped. I'd say it was like 2 months later when you're realizing that you're now running out of gas and your idea was pretty crazy that you begin to hate on yourself a little bit.
Well, at the point when you were doing that, how did you manage to turn things around?
You just don't give up. There's two ways you can do it. Either you can let the world wear you down, or you can wear it down and get your way.
Mm.
So I prefer the latter.
Well, then, well, I'm imagining you've spent 2 months here trying to get this agency off the ground. Was it an agency, or were you just doing freelance at first initially?
And no, it was an agency. I was like, all right, we're gonna go full bore. And what I ended up doing is like, all right, I came up with my own brand. I had everything, and then I realized there was this other guy that was kind of doing it. So we decided to partner up, and then we ended up getting another guy involved, and we realized the one guy that we initially partnered up with didn't really want partners. So he was like, all right, cool. So he went on his own.
Mm.
And then this other guy and myself, we created an agency which was Revital at the time, and we just mushed. He was doing the developing, and I was doing anything related to marketing and sales for our clients as well as for us. And I remember we would get called in and we would do anything. It was like, "Oh, you need a logo? Yeah, we'll figure a logo out. Like,
Mm.
doesn't matter." Or you have email issues, like network connection issues. Like, yeah, we'll crawl into your desk. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't matter. So it was just really survival at that point. I remember he had either a kid or two at the time, so he was actually getting a bigger share of the money so he could take care of his family. I'm pretty much homeless at the time, just being a single guy, just doing whatever I could to make ends meet. And then just slowly, brick by brick, client by client, employee by employee. And then in 2018, I met a mastermind group, met a friend of mine who then became my business partner. In 2018, the economy was going so well, so we merged our companies together, which is
Mm.
Oyova today.
No way. So it's a lot of hard graft for many, many years, saying yes to a lot of things that you probably regret. What's the what was the pivotal moment for you when you kind of realized what your strengths was? Because I assume you don't still crawl under desks nowadays.
No,
And
no,
I'm
no.
wondering
The
what they're
desk crawling
cooking in the
days are over.
microwave
Now I'm
behind you.
on top of them. Yeah,
Oh, you're on top of the desk. You send other people.
yeah.
Well, I guess the serious question, of course, so for me, quick background, I did the very similar thing as an agency owner. We did absolutely everything for anybody. If someone said we need a social media campaign, I had no idea about social media, but I knew I could Google it, so we would work it out. And they were really unprofitable projects, etc. But eventually, there came a point where we realized what our strengths were, and we were able to kind of diverge into that. Uh, what kind of point was that for you guys when you were like, we've got to stop crawling under desks now? This is what we're all about.
Yeah, so it was nothing related to email unless it was a communications campaign. So I think it was mainly communication. So we whittled
Mm.
that down, and then we realized that we're a digital agency. So if it's not digital, like we would do print stuff, we would help people with billboards, and then we got out of that space as well. Just finding really good partners that are better at that than we were,
Mm.
and we figured out that those relationships could also be reciprocal.
Hmm.
So you would find partners and you would send them business, and then of course they would send business to you. So it's essentially building a network and of your master agency, the thing you believe, with just people that are much stronger at those spaces than you are. But yeah, it was just learning through profitability and just really just some awful things where you're just like, oh, we got to give them back all their money because this is not good, man. This is not good. Yeah.
Oh, we've done that very often. To be honest, I will confess, even a year ago, we had to give someone a massive refund because we absolutely screwed up, and we know what we're doing now, but we
Yeah.
still hadn't quite. We hadn't. Well, in all fairness, it was the height of COVID, and we were putting on an online event for a company, and we hadn't thought about what will happen when 500 people hit the server all at the same time, and yeah. everything went to hell in a handbasket, as they say politely, and we had to give them a massive refund, and it was utterly awful. So I still think to this day, people will still you'll still screw up. Things won't be perfect. What are your kind of what's your main niche then nowadays? What's your bread and butter as an agency?
So if somebody needs to drive either lead gen or awareness or engagement on the digital marketing side, we do that through paid search. We're really solid at SEO, social media as well. We haven't figured out the organic side. Actually, we're decent at the organic side as well as the paid side, and then programmatic. So we build campaigns in that way, or we can just essentially just have a standalone one of those type of services, right? And companies we work with, they're usually around 2 million in revenue, up to probably like 50 million. We have a couple that are close to a billion in that client space, but they usually fall between that range. And then when it comes to web dev, the web dev typically falls between the same. Every now and then we get startups and whatnot, and then we'll also do e-commerce, so it'll be the Shopify or WooCommerce there. And when it comes to software development, we do a lot of like business integrations, automations, and things like that, connecting different systems. So the strategy for the company, real quick, was all right. If we merging, we can bring in leads affecting top line revenue, right? And then we can build a website. It's their hub. All roads lead to Rome. That type of scenario. But then we can also affect bottom line revenue by creating efficiencies with software. And we've done that with I'd say a fair amount of clients. So that works. We come in through the marketing, or we come in through the software, and then we end up selling them the other services.
That's interesting. So we run a company called Event Engine. So that's my other agency on top of Trailblazer FM, and we position ourselves in as first of all as consultancy. So we'll come in and consult, helping them essentially break down a blocker, work out what they want to achieve, work out what the blocker is. It's usually some sort of software and automation, and just going to give them their IT service. But then what we upsell after or later on in that relationship is the web build. They can actually use our software that we've got, and we can also implement new CRM systems. There's a whole range of services we can do within the events industry. And I think people very often are hammering home, aren't they? Hey, we do web builds, we do websites, we sell you websites. You want a website? Yeah, we can build you a website. And they don't think of finding that one in that, and it's not necessarily, it's not a small in what you've just described obviously, but it's a highly valuable in. We need to resolve this. We're going to build a relationship with you on this, and there is therefore no reason why you can't then expand on that relationship and say, hey, we don't just do this, we have all of these supporting services which will add even more value and help you generate even more money, or help you grow, etc.
It is, but what's interesting, and you probably experienced this as well, it's a branding problem. You
Mm,
get positioned in their mind for this one thing that you
mm,
do, and they're like, "No, no, no, we're so much more than that. We can do these things." Going back to one of the clients we had back, I got him in like 2009. It was literally two guys with a magnet on the side of their truck, AC company,
mhm,
and I that was one of the companies I helped with their email problem. I had to
mm,
get in there, and dude, in their phone, like probably till this day, they've sold that company for multi-million dollars. Like we helped
mm.
them really grow. Fantastic case study. But in their phones till this day, it says John the email guy. like, so, dude, I was like, all right, yeah, I fixed the email, but we can do this. And I'm just continually like hammering. I'm like, no, we can do all these different things. Where they finally were like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it.
Yeah. But that's the problem, though. Don't you think that people dilute their message as well because they think, they want to tell everyone everything they do?
Totally. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still guilty of that. Yeah, I mean, if we so anybody listening to this, if you're smart, you're going to focus on, your niche, whether I know this is things you warned me about, but it's either going to be horizontal, you either do like SEO or you do web dev or whatever.
Yep.
And then if you really want to be targeted, you focus on your vertical. You work with veterinarian clinics, or you work with basket weavers, or you work with doctors' offices.
Yeah.
Those are always going to be the most profitable. But here's the issue. A lot of people don't realize this. It's really difficult to find solid employees, and you can be and difficult to be the best at your game, because nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I want to be the best web developer, best designer, web developer, marketer for basket weaving companies. So it's this balance that you have to create between business as well as an HR side, and keeping really good talent.
Well, that kind of leads perfectly to the next question. You mentioned right at the very beginning you've scaled your agency, I think, to 30 people so far. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, how did you go around maybe your first employee or your first employees? How did you go around finding those? Because we've had the same problem, especially in the early days. Very high turnover of staff, trying to work out who was good, trying to understand the hiring process. Did you have any of those issues? Have you been really lucky?
Yeah, my first employee, it's a weird story. Like I didn't really want to hire him, but like his mom called me. It was a childhood friend, and she said like
Yeah.
he was suicidal, and I was like,
Oh
oh
man.
man, like I don't know how true that was. I think she was just
Yeah.
really plugging for a job. Like I
Yeah.
mean, he didn't really seem that way when I hired him. But anyway, yeah, I gave him a job, and he worked out pretty well for quite a while. And then from that point, I was like, oh, all right, this is what it's like to actually have an employee. Like they're going to either their timesheets aren't always going to be accurate, right? And but you need to assume the positive, not like you're lying, you're cheating me. It's just like, hey, so creating the structure and creating processes. And then it was looking at the difference between contractors versus employees. So what I realized is the agency had more control over or employees than they did contractors. Right, that's when people still came into the office. And by I mean control is I mean control of the work. I mean control of the deadlines. And then it was just the next one. I think it went from somebody that was like literally helping on just like doing like link building for SEO, and then hired another copywriter, then social media, and then another SEO expert, and then like two designers, and then just kept like stacking and stacking, and then realizing certain things that don't work in house. So designers like, okay, we need better design than I can pay for in house. Work with contractors, and then vice versa. It's just this continual game that you. I think that's the thing you can't be afraid of being super flexible and not worrying about moving all the pieces around or what that might mean. I think we get so attached to the significance of well, this is what our agency is built on. You just need to look at like what works. And if it doesn't work, then okay, it's probably not going to be profitable, or it's probably not going to be good for your people or for your clients.
Yeah, people do hang on to things, don't they? "Well, this is the way we've always done it," or
Totally.
we've always done that. Excuse me, we've always done our design in house, but actually, why not take it out? My favorite phrase is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing every single time, expecting different results.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't get
Absolutely.
too attached.
Yeah. Don't
Uh,
get attached to the outcome.
you mentioned kind of lockdowns, or at least when you said everyone was coming in. So I've mentioned lockdowns. How did that affect you guys?
Well, I was old school. My business partner had the same thinking where we just assumed that if people were not in the office, they would not get their work done.
Hmm.
That was as wrong as could be. People do. In some cases, the productivity was up at like 20%. They don't have the drive time where they're just gritting their teeth sitting in traffic before they get to work. And we were wrong about that. And the other thing too is now we're actually downsizing our office spaces because we can't call everybody back in. We
Yeah,
know that's just not going to be fair. But I miss it. Like I enjoy going to the office,
yeah.
and I would enjoy like just having conversations with people. But I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, you're gonna have them go work somewhere else? Or you're gonna force them to come back in there where they're miserable? I don't think that's the right approach.
What's the feedback though generally from the rest of the team? Are there others that miss it?
No, they don't. They all say, "Oh, you're getting rid of the office?" It's like, "Well, you gonna come in?" "No." It's like, "All right."
You see, I miss it too, and
Yeah.
we do have an office.
Yeah, we still have 2
Yeah,
offices.
yeah.
Yeah.
We still got two offices. I'm in one of them on my own, and
Yeah.
then there's two left in the other office down south. Everyone else is online. I mean, some of our folks have moved away and that, and I get it, which is fine. But I really do miss it, and I often wonder if other employees miss it or whether they just think it's great that they're at home. I kind of feel a little bit depressed over a time if I'm on my own too much.
I think it's all routine though. Like I
Yeah,
love a change of state.
yeah,
So I like to you shower, I get ready to go, and then I go somewhere, and then I go do this work thing, and then I
hmm,
come back, and then I can kind of unplug for the most part. And then when it's from home, I think it all gets muddled. It's just
yeah,
it's not effective. I have friends that work at some huge enterprise companies, one at Google, and she was telling me when she first got there, she was managing these huge teams. Like nobody was actually that's work from home. Like all on their calendar, it was like take dog to vet, drop kids off at school. She's like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" I mean, nobody's
when
even
do you
working.
work?
Yeah,
That's
totally.
amazing. Well, I mean, my wife is forever feeling guilty because I am home a lot more nowadays. That's exactly what happens. She's like, "I've booked an opticians for Friday. I hope that's okay. 12 o'clock." So I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." But in my head, I'm like, "It's an interruption. I've got to go out. I've got to do this. Oh, I hope she's not watching. Oh, that'd be bad." Because at least when I'm at the office, like they know, everyone knows I'm there for I'm there for 8 hours, and then I'll be back, and then I'll be
Yeah,
ready. So,
yeah.
and I do still go like 2 or 3 days a week nowadays, just to be in a different space. Because I'm like you, I just like that whole travel process. I'm at work. This is what I do. When I'm here, the fridge is calling to me. Even now, there's a beer in there saying, "Hey, Lee, it's nearly 5 o'clock." Drink me. Yeah, no worries. All right, I'll stop goofing around. But no, that's that's really insightful. I think I think one of my biggest insights, at least so far from our conversation, has very much been around not being scared to change things. It sounds like you've built your business over the years, not by saying this is our plan and we're going to stick to it, hell or high water. It's been a case of let's try this. Okay, that works. Let's adjust it, see what happens next, and you've not been scared to keep changing, and you've evolved your business. I assume you do this to this very day. You are still continuing to refine your process and refine your offering, or do you feel now you've made it and you just keep rinsing and repeating the same thing?
Yeah, entirely. The issue is that I think you should be a little bit scared.
Hmm.
If you're not, then you're probably just going to run things right into the ground. You're just going to keep like just shooting from the hip, and you're not going to have the necessary constraints so you can build something. But the bigger you get, the harder it is to make some of those changes. So you want to make sure that you have the flexibility and you're not entirely too rigid, that you can change your offering, and then really just motivate the people to actually do the work. I think that's one thing that we've done quite well is pulling people in where they don't feel isolated, so they always feel like they're a part of the conversation.
So on that, then, how do you keep them motivated or feel a part of it? Because we're owners, we're totally invested in this. But
Yeah.
I've often found employees, I can give them the Braveheart level speech, and for 5 minutes they're like, "Yeah," but like 10 minutes later they're like, "I just want to go home
Yeah, we're more like Longshank. We use fear and shame and now even drugs.
now."
No, it's making people feel connected, right? So
Yeah.
I think whether you're working with clients or just anybody wants to feel connected to the
Mm,
decision and they want to be the conversation. Not saying it's like this; it's a full democracy over here where we're
sure.
voting and dropping in stones into buckets for choice, but we we lead with logic and saying, hey,
Hmm.
this is why we're doing this. This is why this is the best decision, and then we also take feedback. So it's
Mm,
not just authoritarian where we're pushing it down. It's like, guys, what is the best thing we should do here? You're really smart people. That's why we hired you.
yeah.
And based on that feedback, we'll typically move in the best direction. And we make mistakes all the time,
Yeah.
but it's learning from them.
That what you've just said reminds me of the book Culture Code, where you as a leader are making yourself vulnerable to the team, and you're saying, "Hey, we think we should do this, but we're not sure. We're being vulnerable. What are your thoughts? What's your feedback? We've hired you guys because we know you're experts too. You can help us here." So people become way more invested. I'll put a link
Interesting.
to the book
I don't look
in
at
the
that as
show
a
notes.
vulnerability, though.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't look at that as a
Oh,
vulnerability.
it
Yeah,
is a vulnerable. You're opening up. You're saying, "Hey, look, I am not the." So you're not positioning yourself as the captain who knows everything.
yeah,
If you, the captain who knows everything, would not then say, "Hey, could you give me your input?" Because that's in theory a sign of that you're not sure what you're doing.
got it. A
Yeah.
captain would also probably be a dick. I mean,
Oh
who'd want
yeah,
to
totally
work
be
with
a
that
dick.
guy?
Yeah, absolutely. But it is, they are building up trust in you because you're opening up and asking for their opinion, and you're often then applying that to your business. It's what we do with our company as well. In fact, some of the best decisions we've ever made as a business has been because of our employees telling us we're
Yeah.
doing it completely wrong. We're like, oh, that's embarrassing. Including our marketing. At one point we were like, trying to come up with all of these Facebook campaigns with little itty bitty downloads and everything, and we're spending hours designing all of our landing pages. And Kathy, you're a legend, mate. One of our employees is like, "Why don't you just talk with our existing clients because they absolutely love us, and there is more that we could be doing with them. But equally, they could just recommend us into other companies as well." And we were like, "This was like a group roundtable meeting, and I literally felt stupid. I
Yeah,
was like, "Mate, that's exactly what we should be doing."
that's a
So
great idea.
we will, and that changed everything for us. We repositioned ourselves more down the consultative path because we recognized that that is actually our strength, is going in, finding out what the, building up those relationships, and then selling off on that. Anyway, enough about me. This is about you, mate. Thank you so much for giving us a little insight into how your agency got started, and how you are not a dick as a leader, which is fantastic and good to hear. Now, I believe you run a digital mastermind. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a mastermind group called the Digital Mastermind, and
Good
it's got
name.
about 100 members in it. And we come together, having Zoom calls. We have to do a yearly event, and it's all about just helping one another out. It's just peer to peer,
Hmm.
and based on that, there's been a lot of partnerships that are created. I mean, I have mergers as well, and just agencies lifting. Like when I went in there in 2012, it was another guy was running it at the time before I was.
Mm.
I just had a handful of people, and then yeah, just steadily grown based on the knowledge that's continually shared from agencies all over the world. There's a few in other countries as well.
That's amazing. How can people find out more about that?
Digitalmastermind.com. Yeah, submit a form if you're interested in joining, and we'll schedule a conversation and see if you're a good fit. Chances are you probably are if you got the fire in your eyes and you want to share and learn from others.
Nice one. And then as we come into land, how can people connect with you, mate?
LinkedIn is the best place. So it's Jon Tsourakis. Last name is spelled Tsourakis. And yeah, just drop me a note on LinkedIn. We can connect, and yeah, if it makes sense, let's have a conversation. I love meeting new people and learn about what they're doing.
Nice one. And folks, I'll make sure there are links to all of this in the show notes as well as the LinkedIn profile. So, John, all that's left for us to say is thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we hope to meet you again real soon.
Likewise, Lee. Thank you. Thank you so much, man. We had a great time here.
Cheerio.